Good morning, Moms and Master Books. Happy Teaching Tips Thursday. Hope you're having a good week. I hope your summer break is going well, or at least your summer is going well. Hey, today I want to talk about stepping outside the box and the challenges that some of us have getting outside the box. Before I do, I opened my Facebook and Bethany May says, okay, I know I've been gushing about these books a lot, and I'm sorry about that. You don't have to apologize about gushing over books in the Moms and Master Books. We appreciate that. We shamelessly appreciate that. Let's see. But I struggled to get through school. But the struggle to get through school was so real last year. Language was a tough one sometimes. I was relieved to try something new this year. So far, Language Lessons for a Living Education, number 3, has been wonderful. My daughter is excited to see what the next lesson is. It's a lot of review from what we learned, but I think it's good. She was so over our curriculum last year that I was afraid she wouldn't retain it. The review has been good. She loves the opportunity to read Bible stories and draw too. Again, thank you, Master Books, for giving us lots of learning opportunities and smiles along the way. So some of what I'm going to talk about today is exactly this joy in learning and the Master Books approach, and where we sometimes experience friction with the market. And so let's dive into that, and be sure to comment for a chance to have 25 reward points added to your account. Later today, I have to go back in and update a couple of the lives that we've done. I don't think I've posted the winners, so I will be doing that as well. Okay, so Master Books uses a lot of an applied learning method versus a knowledge-based method. Now, we apply standards and we want the knowledge, and that's important, but we have the freedom in homeschooling to use a lot more application-based. What is application-based? Well, applied learning, let me give you a definition. Applied learning refers to the educational approach whereby students learn by engaging in the direct application of skills, theories, and models. Students apply knowledge and skills gained from learning to hands-on or real-world settings, creative projects, independent or directed research. So when we look at something like Math Lessons for a Living Education, we would say that's an applied learning. Why? Because on Monday you start with a story that has a little bit of context to math, and then you work Monday through Friday working out the math that's in the story and developing those skills. So you're not just learning the knowledge of how to do the math, you're also learning how to apply that into a very real-world situation. Same with our sciences. We love sciences that are very apologetically driven. Why? Because if I'm learning to defend my worldview, I'm going to want to learn science a lot more if it means that I'm learning about evolution versus creation. Why does the science back up creation and disprove evolution? Well, I can do that, and I enjoy learning the science. I eat the science up because I'm taking that information and applying it to a very real-world application. So I'll tell you a little bit about a story. When I was in high school, I was 14 or 15, I really wanted to play an instrument. And, it was the 80s, right? And so you wanted to be in a band because that's what you did in the 80s. You had long hair, big hair, and you played in a rock band. So I took 2 years of piano lessons. And I sat there and they had the book, and we would do row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, and memorizing all of the notes. And 2 years of it, I was painful to my teacher, and she was painful to me. And I learned some basic theory and little minor skills, but it really just wasn't working for me. And so along the way, there was somebody who came to our church who was a musician, and he played in bands. He played keyboard in bands, and that was what I wanted to play. And so I talked him into giving me some lessons. He said, I'll give you 6 lessons. It's going to cost you, and it cost me like 4 times what I was paying for lessons, for piano lessons in the traditional model. But he said, I'll give you 6 lessons. I'll tell you what you need to know, and it's going to cost you this much money. And so I worked and got the money, and I took 6 lessons, and he taught me just some basic things. He taught me, some basic theory, but then he taught me how to build a chord. And he taught me about chord progressions and how the majority of songs are built on 4 chords. In fact, if you want to fund YouTube videos, look at the 4 chord progression in top 40 songs or something like that. It's amazing how many songs follow the same 4 chords over and over and over again. And so he gave me the basics of that. And then he blew my mind and he gave me the blues scale. And the blues scale was just incredible. And I could learn this very quickly. And so in 6 weeks, I had everything I needed to know to begin playing chords and notes and begin stepping into places where I was able to play with a band. And so I played with the band, and I developed the skills on the keyboards and the organ and those things. And I learned to play by ear. And then I was able to pick up bass, and then drums, and then guitar, and a number of other instruments that were just fun to play, to pick an instrument up and play and learn how to kind of get through the song. Well, so the question, right, there's a traditional approach, and please, if you're a traditional musician, I think that route is really, it's great. And then there's also those who can who learn to play by ear and learn some basic theory. In fact, a lot of musicians don't know how to read music. They know how to play chords and play by ear, and they improvise and those things. So the question I would have is, even though, at what point was I a musician? Was I a musician because I was taking piano lessons, or was I a musician because I actually was able to play with other musicians and perform in a band? And then take it further. So I took what I learned as a teenager, and as I became an adult, I started leading worship and led worship for 14 years. So I was leading others and singing and worship. And then when I had children, I was able to teach my children how to play bass and drums and guitar or keyboard, to the place that they're phenomenal musicians. I love listening to them. And I just gave them, here's the basics, and then they took the basics and were able to go farther. Well, what happened in that place for me was, this musician who played and traveled, he was able, when I was a teenager, to give me basic knowledge and then apply it very quickly. So I had the ability to apply my skills and theories very quickly into what I was interested in, and that developed into a passion. And so over the years, we just went to the Grand Canyon. I came home from the Grand Canyon with 2 guitars. I bought my son a new bass, and I'm teaching one of my younger sons now to play bass. And this joy of learning, this, what he did for me, continues on today and through my life. And I'm watching my children as well. So, but here's one of the mistakes that I made. When I was a young dad, my oldest daughter said, I'm interested in learning to play. Now, I played all the time, but I thought, well, she wants to play piano. So can you believe this? This is what I did. I contacted my first music teacher, who for 2 years tried to teach me how to play and read music. And I asked her if she would come and teach my oldest daughter. Well, it didn't go well. In fact, I think the music teacher said, there's no doubt this is your daughter. And my daughter hated playing music. She hated the whole experience and never really took on the instruments. And so then when my next children were interested in music, what I did was I did it the way I did. I said, here's 4 chords. Let's just begin playing together. And in playing together, they start to learn different runs and tricks and how to improvise and then how to move to different chords and stuff like that. Well, this friction that we feel often with Master Books, when we design Master Books, we try to do it from the standpoint of the real world. What does homeschooling look like in the real world? Not what does it look like in school? What does it look like when you're trying to copy school at home? But what does it actually look like when you're just training and discipling and teaching your children? And sometimes the school method, the traditional method of knowledge-based learning, I read a book or I read a paragraph, then I answer questions, and we do use some of those methods, but we try to use as much application and hands-on approach as we can, because we know that engages the student, and if they're able to use those tools, not only will they retain them, but they'll continue to use them, they'll build on it. And the friction that we sometimes experience, in fact, it's not uncommon for me to get letters saying, I can't believe that you've departed from this traditional model and this is what you should be doing, yet the system is effective and working. Hopefully this is making sense. When I have two music teachers, and one is a traditional approach, and the traditional approach for some of the kids in our class was phenomenal, and it worked well, and they did recitals, and they learned to play piano, and they could sit down at the piano, I'm sure today, and play a piece of music. I cannot. But what I can do is sit down with 4 other musicians and begin to play and sing and enjoy music. So which one is a musician? Which method was right? Now, if to my piano teacher, my first piano teacher, she would absolutely tell me that I need to learn to read music in order to be a musician. The second piano teacher would have said, as long as you understand these 4 chords and you understand the Nashville numbering system, you're gonna be okay to sit down and play with anybody. And that proved true for me. When it comes to our schooling, what tends to happen, now some people really, let me back up, some people really enjoyed the school experience, and they really enjoyed the textbooks, and they enjoyed the busy work, and they enjoyed the tests and the grades and all of that, and so that's wonderful. There are other people who didn't. It was a painful experience. And then we come into homeschooling, and what do? We take the school model that didn't work for us or that was painful to us, and we try to apply that approach to our own children as well. And then there's that tension that exists because fear is contagious, anxiety is contagious. Our energy that we bring into the classroom, our students will pick up and mirror back to us. And so we tend to have this mindset, school didn't really work this well for me, and so I'm going to bring that to my students, and I'm going to try to make them enjoy it, even though I didn't enjoy it. But yet in life, a lot of us have moved out of that model and been successful. We were able to learn what we needed to do. We were able to overcome the challenges that we had, and still, even though to this day I'm not very good at coloring, I'm sorry, I'm not. I hire people who are better at coloring and design than I am. And when it comes to cutting with scissors, well, I hire other people. I will pay somebody else to cut out my paper dowels. But it doesn't mean that I haven't been able to still figure out how to sell paper dowels. Okay. So my encouragement for you today is, we've talked about, a mission statement. We've talked about urgency and creating purposes, but my encouragement would be, don't be afraid to be creative. It's okay to stay in the box if what's in the box is working for you. If what's in the box isn't working for you, don't be afraid to step out of that and experiment a little bit with your homeschool. Other people may have the expectation that that's not how you homeschool. Other people may think that you need to have all of these things in place. And I think sometimes math lessons for a living education, we get this a lot. Is it enough? One of the reasons we get asked, is it enough, is because it's a very applied mathematics approach. And so by the time a student gets to sixth grade, they've covered all the material. In fact, all through the grades, they're covering the same material. It's just done from a much different approach. And it's outside the box for a reason. Does it work for everybody? Absolutely not. It wasn't written for everybody, right? There's enough other curriculums that are available that if you want to give your kid pages and pages of math, there's phenomenal curriculums for that. Do Saxon. I mean, if you want to do it, do Saxon, or I mean, you can have that approach. We don't need another Saxon. We needed math lessons for a living education. And so in some ways, what we're looking at is, here's what's in the box. Here's all the pieces that are in the box. What are preventing homeschoolers from being successful? What is it that's causing them to get frustrated and want to give up? And we didn't want to copy everybody else. We were looking at, how do we create solutions that give everybody a solid foundation, but also help them address those challenges or issues. And so the applied learning model that we use is very much taking the skills that you have and applying it to real world situations as quickly as possible. And I think for a lot of families where they were trying a very traditional approach and the frustration was building and students were getting frustrated, mom's getting frustrated, and everybody's thinking, well, maybe public school is a better approach. And here's what happens all the time, and it's just a reality. Dads are a fixer, right? So when dad comes home and mom is locked in the bathroom and the house is a mess and the kids are like, don't know what's wrong with mom, and then mom unloads on dad, dad starts to think, I need to fix this. And obviously I can't do the homeschooling. I can't fix homeschooling. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start putting pressure to put the students in a private school, or maybe our parents were right and we couldn't do this. And then mom loses that support. A lot of times, in fact, man, I got to say 70 to 80% of the time, homeschool issues that we see come down to ill-fitted curriculum. You know, I say in every community, and in fact, in regions, when we do a convention, you get to see this, but I call them alpha moms. They're influencer moms who are very strong personalities, who know what they're doing, and other people tend to take comfort in their advice. And so maybe this mom used sunlight. And so because she used sunlight, she starts to tell everybody that sunlight is a great curriculum and they should use sunlight. And she supports them in that. Next thing you know, an entire region uses sunlight, or classical conversations, or Rebecca, or ACE. And so we have different regions around the country who tend to be more oriented towards certain curriculums. And it really came down to one or two moms loved that curriculum, and then they kind of became the influencers or the leaders in that area. So when we move into an area, we often have to identify what is the influence that was in this region prior to us starting to sell Master Books. Because if you were brought up that classical conversations method, the classical method was the best solution, then Master Books approach is completely different on a lot of fronts. Or if you were from a sunlight perspective, you love the literature, and the biblical worldview is what tends to really resonate with you. So those influences exist, and moms tend to follow what the influence is, but then all of a sudden it's like, but my kids don't like it. I'm struggling to make this work. Now there's friction between me and my kids, and then it starts spilling into the home, and everybody's unhappy. And so our desire is to create curriculum for the real world that helps parents succeed. Give the kids the skills and the resources and the tools that they need to move forward. Now, my illustration about music and music theory is a little bit basic, because we do care about the standards, and we do care about making sure that kids are on par, so to speak. But we are the first to tell people, grade levels or averages. Don't get hung up on grade levels. Use a grade range. Are they lower elementary, upper elementary, junior high, or high school? And that gives us an idea. But if a student is struggling in math and they're supposed to be doing algebra, but they really don't know how to do fractions, it doesn't do much good to put that child into algebra. If they have a learning gap in one area, you're better off to go back and do a pre-algebra and work on developing the skills they need to move into algebra. The goal is learning, right? It's not a checkbox. So many times we see families who are like, but this is like me. They're like me, where it's like, but the way you teach music is you hire a piano teacher. And if you're a piano teacher, I'm sorry, I think that's fantastic. And I really do admire kids who can read music and play that way. It wasn't me. So why I went and hired the same piano teacher that didn't work for me to teach my student is a question that I have as I've been thinking about this. Like, that was kind of a daddy fail, right? I need to go back and apologize to my oldest for that. But we do that with school too. We do that with school. We go and try to say, I'm going to get this textbook and I'm going to make it work with my kids, and I'm going to be the teacher, even though I really don't like the whole teacher thing, and some of those things. So as we set up for the 2019-2020 school year, we have the mission statement, excellence in learning, and I hope that, or whatever mission statement you have, and I hope that as we go into next year, you also, based on last week's teaching tips, that you have a sense of urgency. And okay, I got distracted. Anna says, by standards, it does not mean Common Core. No. We are not Common Core. So when I say standards, I mean basic expectations that are for each, grade level. So thank you for clarifying that, Anna. I appreciate it. Okay, I got distracted on that. Yeah, we're not Common Core. Okay, yeah, back to the mission statement. So we have a mission statement. Hopefully you also have a sense of urgency and purpose, that your children are world changers, that God has a purpose and a plan for them, to use them to affect culture and change the world. You're homeschooling for a purpose. I hope you got that. And I hope you also give yourself permission to experiment a little bit when it comes to schooling. That I call it growth hacking. It's a concept in marketing where you test a few things, see what works, apply more energy in the areas that work and resources in the areas that work, and you retreat from those that don't. If you try math lessons for a living education and you notice that your kid starts to light up and enjoy math and they're getting the concepts, okay, that's working. So apply more energy. If you start math lessons for a living education and they hate it and they hate you, then don't get mad at Master Books. Just retreat from that and try whatever solution works for you. We bless you in that, all right? We give you permission to try things. We know that there is no one size fits all. We think we have a fantastic solution, but some families are going to enjoy more traditional, or they're going to enjoy more rigor. When I say rigorous, I'm saying more busy work, more, just more. And so don't be afraid as you go into this year to experiment a little bit and test different things to see what works with each student. And each student is different too. So we have one student in our home who's loving math lessons, and one who's not so sold on it yet. And that's okay. They're unique individuals, and we have the freedom to adapt and adjust and be creative with the way we homeschool. But if you're kind of stuck in the mindset that, I need to, the homeschool that I run needs to look like the public school I went to or the private school I went to, and if it's working, fantastic. But if it's not working, then my challenge would be to give yourself permission, step out of the box, and be a little bit free-spirited. and try a few different things to see what works best. Because it's through that experimentation and testing that we learn how to really what works best and resonates with our kids. I could still be trying to play piano with sheet music and read music, and I don't think I would have had as rich of an experience in music as I've had, or enjoyed it as much, because I was able to take a bit of a risk. And so that story, I hope it's helpful to somebody when you're thinking about schooling, and if you're stuck with, but this is so far different than what I understand or know, or what people expect me to be doing. Or maybe you're stuck in one of those cycles, like those influences where, no, everybody here does schooling classical, or everybody here does Charlotte Mason method, or everybody does here's what we do learning. And we enjoy learning, and we take a little bit of this and a little bit of that works. Our math, we say we're Charlotte Mason influenced, and the Charlotte Mason purists will be, oh my goodness, Charlotte's rolling over in her grave. I can't believe you said that, you even said her name when you were talking about your curriculum. Believe me, I've gotten those emails. And the reality is, some of what Charlotte had was fantastic, and some of it doesn't apply as well to homeschoolers in the year 2018. And so let's take the good and use that. And then there are some approaches with the classical method that are fantastic. So let's bring that in, and let's use a little bit of that. And you know what? Some of the traditional method is fantastic. And so let's bring a little bit of that in. But let's also realize that in our culture, we're in a time of change, and we're training our kids so differently. So I'll end with this, but in the past, part of an education, you needed to learn to read, you needed to learn to write. In order to be productive to society and bring contribution, you had to have some basic knowledge of government and all these things. But then somewhere along the way, we also developed that we needed to have as much knowledge and capabilities up here as possible, so that when we graduated school, we were basically a walking encyclopedia of information. And some parents stress that if my kid doesn't know everything when they graduate, I will have failed them. And I would just say, you can't possibly teach your kid everything. There's no way. There is so much knowledge in this little black phone that is available to me that there's no way I can teach my children all of this. What I can do is I can give them a very solid biblical worldview, so that they understand who the Creator is, what He desires from them, what His expectations are for them, and how they should go about discipling others to also walk in that path. And so I can give them that solid foundation. I can give them a basic understanding of how to communicate their truths. I can help them understand, when they see context, how did we get here? When we study history, those who don't learn from their history are destined to repeat it. What are we repeating right now that's already been done? Oh my goodness, how many cultures have collapsed, who gave up? When the destruction of the family begins to happen, when homosexuality becomes part of a culture, when all of these things happen, whether it was Rome or Greece or you name it, you pretty much knew the society was about to collapse. Well, I can teach my kids that. I can teach my kids, look for these warning signs, because when this happens in history, when men act this way, this is what the outcome is. And what happened in the aftermath? How did people walk out of that destruction and move into something else? So I can teach them actually how to be successful no matter what's happening. With science, I can teach them about the world around them and how to understand and enjoy God's creation. They will not always retain all that information, because even in this world, right, we're becoming very niche. The old days of a general store, they're very rare. I guess Walmart could be a massive general store, but they focus more on niches. Those are where people are succeeding, is with niches. I can sell just ties online now and focus on just being the best tie salesman with the most variety. And I have access to as many customers as I need because I now have a global market. So the niches are beginning to become very important. Well, if I take a tie manufacturer and I want them to also understand everything that there is to know about socks, do they need that information? And I guess you could have a lot of discussions about that. So, all right. I know I ranted a little bit in this one, so I'm sorry. I hope you got something from it. My biggest thing is don't be afraid to step out of the box if what's in the box isn't working for you. Don't give up homeschooling because you think homeschooling is tied to this box. Take on the mentality of failure is not an option. And if we have to get outside the box to homeschool our children and to raise them in the counsel of godliness, then we will do it. There are enough solutions and enough methods of teaching and enough different resources today to homeschool your kids that there's no reason to give up. Okay? The other thing I'll encourage you, and I say this often, but if you're going through a hard spot, you have 3 kids that you're trying to homeschool, you're nursing a baby, your husband is in a change of jobs, finances are tough, the car just broke, all of these things are happening, and homeschooling just feels overwhelming to you. Can I just tell you, there are seasons. It does not last forever. And you're not alone. We all go through these seasons, and these seasons will pass. We have winter, spring, summer, and fall. And well, maybe you're in a tough season right now, right? It's a snowstorm and you just can't even see out the windows. That does not last forever. This is a season. Babies grow up. Believe me, babies grow up. And life has a way of changing. And yeah, we've been through it all. In fact, when we had our 5th baby, the day she was born, terrible delivery, almost lost Kristen and the baby, Joy, that day. As soon as the baby was born, my mother called and said, yeah, the transmission on your van blew up on the way to church today. So not only did I lose all of that, I now had to pay for this baby and this hospital stay. My transmission was gone. We had 1 vehicle. The transmission was gone. And that's just life. But guess what? It moved on. We got through it. We got the transmission fixed. Joy is a beautiful young lady today. And it all worked out, and the seasons change. So if you're in a spot where it's just like I'm overwhelmed right now, I'm just encouraging you. You can let go of some expectations and you can do what it takes to get through this season, but it's only a season. It doesn't last forever. I'm not sure why I added that, so hopefully it was encouraging to somebody. Hey guys, God bless you. Later today, and I think I'm going to broadcast it live, but I may replay it as well next week. But I'm going to have the chance to interview Dr. Timothy Clary, and he is the person who he's the author of Dinosaurs, God's Marvel of Design, or Marvels of God's Design. He is a paleontologist, works with ICR, and I want to talk about, why dinosaurs matter, why dinosaurs are in the Bible, why there's such an effort to convince people that dinosaurs are prehistoric and these things. I want to talk to an expert in dinosaurs. Like, why does he believe that we're being deceived? Because I know we have this conversation come up every now and then, and some of you are new to the science that we teach, and I just think it'd be great to bring in an expert who has far more experience than I do. So I think he's going to be 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and if I can work it out, we will broadcast that live here as well, and hopefully you can make that. All right, guys. Hey, if we don't see you there, I pray you have a blessed weekend, and that you feel a little bit encouraged to take one step outside the box if you need to. All right, guys. God bless you.